Why I left US Law Shield. Hey guys, welcome to Lock and Load Podcast. My name is Josh, and we talk to you about Connecticut 2A issues. Today's episode is talking about why I left US Law Shield years ago. Now, when we talk about insurance aspects for concealed carry, we've done a few episodes on this. We've had Deziel on from USCCA. We've had Chris Jones on from Law Shield, formerly from Law Shield. And we've talked about CCW safe before. I'll talk about attorneys on retainer briefly in this episode. That is no longer legal here in Connecticut, to be clear. But I want to talk to you about why I left US Law Shield. People ask me this every now and again. And I was like, you know what? This would make a good little Monday morning podcast. So if you haven't seen any other Monday videos are going to be these solo podcasts that I'm doing. Talk to you guys about one issue. They're shorter videos. They're not going to be super long. Where our Friday episodes with Michelle from Patriot Wear Holsters. And normally we'll possibly have a guest depending on what the topic is of that day. So when we talk about this today, I did change some names, and I left some names normal too. Some current people that still work there, I changed their names. Some past people that work there, I changed their names. But we left some the same. So US Law Shield, right? They don't call it insurance. They call it a membership program. And that's great. Totally fine. I tell people, let me start off actually with this, saying that you should have something. You should have either USCCA, US Law Shield, CCW Safe, or any other program out there. Have something. It's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. I cannot stress that enough. Now, why I left US Law Shield from a partner standpoint, I still maintain my membership. I maintain both USCCA and US Law Shield. The main reason I keep my US Law Shield membership is attorney Greg Miller, 10 out of 10 attorney, especially for our store. He is our go-to attorney for gun questions. He is a go-to attorney for a lot of things, for a lot of stores. So if you want access to one of the top, if not the top attorney for gun-related questions in Connecticut, definitely maintain your Law Shield membership. That's 100%. I'm not contesting that in any bit whatsoever. But from a business standpoint, they burned a bridge, which is disappointing. So we're going to first talk about Bob. Now, obviously, that's not his real name, but going forward, we're going to call him Bob. Now, Bob first came to me right after US Law Shield was introduced into CCDL, and he was going around to stores, setting up partnerships. And what they come in and do is they talk to pistol permit classes. Pretty simple. They come in, they kind of pitch their membership, we'll call it, and we as the store get compensated if somebody signed up. Now, nobody signed up, no compensation, no harm, no foul. And I really believed in them, and I still to an aspect do, but it was poor management in the long run. So Bob was here. Bob was great. He was a great territory manager for Connecticut. I believe that's what his job was. And we had a great relationship. He would give me updates. They'd send stuff. You get us food sometimes. It was a great working relationship. And he left at the end of December, I believe, of 2020. I'm sure that's the proper timeline of that. And his regional manager took over, and we're going to call him George. George took over for Connecticut while on top of other territories. And at the same time, USCCA came into the picture. Now, you guys have seen Deziel on here before. We're going to get him on to another podcast too. Talk about the updates of CCDL. But USCCA came in from a regular of mine, and I said I would give him a chance, right? Let's listen to it, be objective, hear how it's going. So for 2 months, January and February of 2021, for just pistol permit classes, I had USCCA come in on Saturdays and US Law Shield come in on Sundays. I let both the organizations know that was my plan. And at the end of February, I would reevaluate and pick someone, right? So my classes at the time, we were doing a lot more on Sundays than we were Saturdays. So I set up US Law Shield to succeed. And unfortunately, they failed, let alone with the compensation. It was the turnaround was the problem with the regular employees that came in. It was constant turnaround, unfortunately. So there was no consistency, and it just wasn't at the time a product I could stand behind. So USCCA came in and they won. So I told both of the organizations, my contacts for them, one of them being George here, that I would make a decision by the end of February. Now in Connecticut, it snows. I remember this. It was a Tuesday. I was coming into work and it snowed that day. And I was in maybe 10 or 15 minutes late. So like 10:15 ish. And I was opening up the store. I just walked in and the store phone rings. Happens all the time now. That store phone rings constantly. And it was George on the phone. Now, George had my personal cell phone number, which I don't give out to a lot of people, but that kind of business relationship, they have my personal cell phone number. But he called the store, which I found still to this day kind of odd. And he was like, so he's like, hey, this is George, is Josh there? And I'm like, hey, yeah, it's Josh. How's it going? He's like, yeah, it's going. Who you going with? What are you doing? Like just straight to the point, but rudely, abrasively, we'll say. Um, and I'm like, hey, I was going to call you in a couple days because that's the end of the month, which I told you when I was making my decision. But I'm probably going to go with USCCA at this point. And I shit you not, guys, he starts motherfuckering me on the phone. That was the bridge being blown up, not just burned, blown up. It was so unprofessional and disrespectful. That is the only words I can use for that. And that was that. So contacted USCCA, and we've been very happy with USCCA since. US Law Shield has tried to come back. When Chris Jones came in, he replaced George. And unfortunately, George did a lot of damage to this state in the instructor realm, in the store realm. He not only burned my bridge, he burned, I'm not going to say the other businesses, but we'll just say a couple, we'll say 2 handfuls worth of businesses that he burned bridges with. And said like, oh, they're going to come crawling back. Now, Chris Jones, who replaced George, Chris is great. Chris tried. Chris and I had many conversations, and he came onto our podcast. And shortly after that podcast, Chris was let go from US Law Shield. And Chris, I don't know what Chris is doing to this day. I know he does stuff in insurance. I wish him all the best. Haven't heard from him in a while. US Law Shield has no consistency of management in Connecticut or just possibly New England at this point. I did hear of a new name of a manager, and have not seen him, heard from him or anything. There is a rep still here. We're going to call him Barry. Not using his real name either. Barry's super great. He was actually just in the store the other day. And he just is one of those, just a normal rep. He goes to a couple classes, talks about the membership, and that kind of stuff. He's still around. He's actually the longest employee in Connecticut. And so him and I always, we talked back and forth about this. That's actually what gave me the idea to talk about this on the podcast was, well, why, what happened? This is what happened. There was another kid that would come in every now and again. We're going to call him Henry. He was good too. He was nice. And he tried to get his back. That was before Chris, but it didn't pan out. George burned these bridges, and it has hurt Law Shield since then. Now, US Law Shield is huge in the Midwest. New England, not so much. USCCA is obviously your bigger presence here now. It is, a lot of stores have partnerships with them. We're an official partner. I'm also a USCCA instructor. That's a huge benefit. It's not only just NRA instructors out there, they're USCCA instructors. It's a whole separate entity of the USCCA, is that aspect to it. So on top of being able to teach pistol permit curriculum based on USCCA curriculum that's approved by the state, there's a ton of other curriculum just with USCCA alone. So we do those free classes, the OPE events. Hopefully you guys have been to them before. They are on our website when we have them. So we have a few coming up. If you go to lockandloadct.com and then click on USCCA mini classes, you're going to be able to find them right there. And they're free. Most of them are free. The only ones that cost money are the legal seminars when we bring in one of our attorneys or one of the attorneys. But US Law Shield is still an option in Connecticut. Again, for the access to Greg Miller, what 100%, I maintain it myself. I think USCCA is a bit of a better program when it comes to especially the cost of bond. That is one of my big factors in this, is if you're in a self-defense incident, how much is it going to cost you to get out of jail? On top of the attorney fees and everything else, the bond is a huge factor. And US Law Shield does not have a high amount. Now there's different tiers available now. They've changed up the program a little bit. They offer a month free or something in the beginning, but go and compare and contrast them yourselves, guys. This is not me saying go pick USCCA or US Law Shield or CCW Safe. This is definitely me saying don't pick attorneys on retainer. They are no longer legal in Connecticut. They got in trouble with the Commissioner of Insurance for the state of Connecticut. I believe that is the title. And they are no longer a valid insurance program in Connecticut. So definitely watch yourselves. If you have that program for whatever reason, I would seriously consider changing to something else. I think there's another company called Right to Bear. That's a different one out there too. But check them out for yourselves, guys. Don't just take my word for it or take some other YouTuber for it. Do your own research. Come in and ask questions if you want, but do your own research, guys. There are YouTubers that, bigger than me or any other Connecticut-based YouTuber, the big guys out there in the gun industry. Some of them are sponsored by one company, and then they get out of contract by a company, and then they don't like something, so then they do a whole video on why they left. I know that kind of sounds like me here, but I wasn't getting paid the big bucks, guys. I'm just a little guy, and I'm trying to just, tell you what happened, tell you why US Law Shield was so present in Connecticut and why it's kind of disappeared, unfortunately. So there we go. Again, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys have questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below here. We are on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, Alexa. Yep, we are on Alexa. Facebook, Instagram, and all that good stuff. Either Lock and Load Podcast for that kind of stuff, or if you want to check out the store, Lock and Load Firearms in Southington. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and all that good stuff. We will see you guys next time for another Monday episode. Bye-bye. Lock and Load Podcast is sponsored by Lock and Load Firearms, Connecticut's #1 rated gun store and pistol permit class on Google. Come check us out, 1573 Meriden Waterbury Turnpike in Southington. Lock and Load Firearms.
Lock and Load Podcast is also sponsored by Patriot Wear Holsters, custom-made Kydex holsters locally made in Waterbury, Connecticut. www.patriotwearholster.com and use code LNL Podcast for 10% off your purchase. Orders available for shipping or pickup at various locations.